Good? Yes. Everybody hear this one? Okay. All right, so let's get the morning started. So the first talk of the morning is going to be Kate, and she always brings us some sort of amazing hack or cool thing to show us. So this morning she's going to be talking about Oregon Trail in Minecraft. So Kate, take it away.
Oh, thank you. Am I on? Okay, perfect. Thanks. Okay, so I know there's a bunch of new people here, so a little about me. Okay, camera. Oh, so people on the web, I'm so sorry. I like to wander. My name's Kate, and when I'm not at Kansasfest being a nerd, well, I'm always a nerd, but I'm the nerdy teacher at a high school in Loudoun County, Virginia. I teach home economics, but I'm also that teacher that the kids are like, she's such a geek. We can go hang out with her. She's so cool. And I like to play Minecraft a lot. I stream Minecraft on my Twitch channel, but not this Minecraft because this is educational Minecraft, and I'm going to get into this in a second. And I don't know why there. So, TLDR, this school year, we got an email about a 7-week online course, become a Microsoft Certified Innovative Educator, whatever. I'm sure it's one of those Microsoft certs that everybody throws around that means nothing. And when I found out that there was a Minecraft lesson, I was like, okay, I'll sit through the other 6. And it's some free points, whatever. A couple summers ago, I took an entire course in using virtual environments in education, and Minecraft was one of the ones that was featured. That was when when I learned how to play Minecraft. My instructor was like, you have to play X hours. And about halfway through the class, she's sent out an email to everybody, this is how long you've been playing. She's like, my email was something like, here's your server logs. This is page 1. There are about 7 more like it, so I think you're fine. My classmates had built crude hovels out of logs, and I had a 2-story house and another portal, and sheep and cows and a farm and all kind of mine with carts and all kinds of stuff. And they're like, you've played before? I'm like, no, but I watch a lot of Twitch streamers. So that was when I learned that Microsoft bought Mojang, I don't know how long ago. Notch decided to sell out. Has created an educational edition of Minecraft. It's separate from regular Minecraft. As I say, it has its own version numbering. It's built on 1.14, but it doesn't have all like if anybody's played the new Village and Pillage update, it doesn't have any of that. It's made for teachers to use in the classroom. So just a couple differences. It doesn't do custom skins. This is not what I look like in my Minecraft. Although it does let students kind of pick from, you can personalize yourself a little bit, but you can't do custom skins. It also comes with a whole bunch of worlds that are built for various lessons. You can start with a blank world, you can start with a book cover. So it's designed for teachers to build their own kind of curriculum around. So we had the lesson, I'm like, oh, this is really cool, yada, 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 yada. And I'm rolling through all of the different things. Where is it? And I saw this one right here. So I click and I'm like, that's really cool. And so I did a little bit of research. So Houghton Mifflin, or whatever, Houghton Mifflin Harcourt is one of the 4 or 5 houses that do pretty much all of your textbooks. For those of you who are in education, there are about 4 or 5 houses that do all the textbooks in the United States. And they keep eating each other up, so eventually it's going to be like Disney, there's going to be just one. So they put together this Houghton Mifflin Harcourt Minecraft Education is proud to deliver the Oregon Trail experience. So this world is exclusive to Minecraft Education. Unfortunately, if you don't have access to the educational version, I can't give you this world. To have access to this version, you have to be an educator or a student in a county or district or system that uses Microsoft and pays for the license. So this is all done, this is all logged in through my work email. This is all done through my work Microsoft account. So, but I thought it was really cute. And it's got a little bit of a curriculum. It's designed for probably upper middle to, or upper elementary to lower middle for if you're thinking about where you would want to use this. But just the world itself is really cute, and I kind of want to walk through it with you. It's also got some lessons. So I'm going to get the world template. You can run it in survival or creative. So it's it's Minecraft. It controls like Minecraft. And I'm playing it on a pitched surface, so this is going to be real interesting. So if you get motion sick, I'm super sorry. So you're about to begin a great adventure. 2,000 miles. Well, no, I don't know if it's really 2,000 miles, but it starts like this. And this is going to look very familiar to a lot of us. Try taking a journey by covered wagon. You don't actually have a covered wagon, unfortunately. So there are some limitations to what you can do with this. You can see here's the covered wagon. It's basically vanilla Minecraft, which for those of you who don't play Minecraft, it means it's the base game. There's not a lot. I know that there's not a lot of stuff added to it. The thing about Minecraft, especially the Java edition that most people who think of Minecraft are probably used to, is that it is infinitely modifiable. And there are people out there who just make all kinds of, there's people who've done machines, and I've built nuclear reactors, I've built automated ore processing, I've built automated killing machines. I asked in the Minecraft session if this was compatible with a lot of those mods, but they weren't answering my questions, I think because they were too busy trying to explain to people like how you move. It was like 50 people in this online session, and about 45 of them had never played Minecraft before. So the instructor was kind of busy telling, this is how you go forward. This is how you walk. So it's like, meanwhile I'm here, I'm going, can I install Forge mods with this? And can I do this? And they're just like, oh my gosh, stop. You don't need to be here. So it gives you kind of an Oregon Trail experience, but it's not going to be like you're actually going to be playing the game in Minecraft. Could that be done? Yeah, we would require a lot of programming on the back end. And this is designed to be easy to use in the classroom. It's got some stuff built into it that regular Minecraft doesn't, for teachers to be able to use it. So questions, try on the plains, will you slosh your oxen through mud and water-filled ruts, or will you plod through dust 6 inches deep? And then it gets to how will you cross the rivers, if you have enough money. Supplies, the Columbia River, or the road. All those decisions we had to make. So basically, right-click me. Oh, right-click me is down here.
Do you have custom animals then?
What do you mean?
They talked about buffalo.
No, they don't have custom animals.
That's dumb. I should say that.
I know. I didn't design. So it's cute. It is definitely not perfect system. And there are definitely some things that if I had built this, again, this is built for teachers who the teachers aren't going to know as much about Minecraft as their students. 9 teachers out of 10 are going to look at this and go, I have no idea how to deal with this. First thing I think I'm going to do so you guys can see it. I can't remember. Time set? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to set it I'm going to put it in what's called survival mode or creative mode, which means it's going to let me fly around and do stuff. No, I just put it into creative mode. Did I? No, I was in survival. Game mode. Okay. Okay. So the first, This could be used in the classroom, but it would just require a little bit more of teacher interaction. This isn't something where you're going to turn the students loose. It's not like, when we were in school and it was like, here's a disc for Oregon Trail, have fun. You would actually have to walk through this with your students like I'm doing. So the first decision, so this should look very familiar to all of us. Many kinds of people made the trip to Oregon. What is your choice? Take the contents of the crate of your choice. So if you look in the crates, Banker from Boston has lots and lots of gold nuggets and a bow. Everybody gets a bow. Carpenter from Ohio, not quite so many. Farmer from Ohio, not so much. So the idea is you take that and you fill your inventory with it. And this is not modded, so I have to do this the hard way. So this is the first thing that I would definitely change. I would go into the back end and change. Again, it's made for the lowest. It's made for the lowest skill level. So a lot of teachers would not understand what they were doing, or would have to do some research. So there's NPCs. So welcome NPCs that say trail learning. So the idea really is it's a framework that contains lessons that exist outside of the game. But first thing we're going to do is I'm going to come over here and we're going to look at, first thing I'm going to do is pick that up. So they've built this, and this is, it's all window dressing. There's a pig. So this is all window dressing. You're not actually driving this huge wagon, as much fun as that would be. What? Thud, 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 thud. But the idea here is for students to, this is what, they would have had all of their cargo back here, and they would have sat up here, and they would have had the 2 oxen, and maybe a lamp, and and this is what it would have looked like. But it's nice and big so that students can actually look at it, explore it, and see it. It's not meant to be moving. And we have the town of Independence. I know in the real, So all of these different NPCs have something to say. So over here we have rather than just Matt's General Store, we have a couple of different places. This is Phillips General Store. This is the barn, so we've got all kinds of, he's got all kinds of different stuff that they basically just built what is supposed to be the town of Independence. So trail learning. So this guy has trail learning above his head, so if we right-click him, so this would be the first lesson. So if I was doing this in my classroom, I would tell the kids, and I didn't because I didn't, and this isn't school, I didn't want to make you guys actually do work, but I would have a worksheet for the kids with some sort of activity that, and I could either do it as a worksheet or do it on Google Classroom or whatever. What would you need? What do you think you would need to take if you're going to go for 5 months and thinking about, there are no gas stations, there are no exits, there are no interstates, there are no, getting them thinking about, driving, I drove here from West Virginia. I drove here from the DC area. So kind of, halfway across the country, which is essentially what they did. But I have an interstate and I have, civilization. There's nothing. So even just getting them in that mindset of, you got nothing. So what are you going to take? You have to take clothes, you have to take food, you have to take ammunition. So have them figure out what all they would take. Answer.
Does Microsoft provide a lesson plan?
They do. Learn more. So you can either use the prepared Microsoft lesson plans, which they give you. Like I said, I didn't print all these out and make you guys do them. This is something, I would do this probably as if I was teaching this, I would do it as a multi-day unit. This would probably be I would probably do this if I was teaching in this sphere as like a final unit project for a portfolio-based final unit project for the westward expansion study that everybody does in middle school. I think everybody studied the westward expansion at some point in their school career, probably more than once, probably once in middle school, probably once in high school, maybe a little bit in elementary school. So you got a long way to go with 5 minutes with grocery stores. Your wagon can only hold 2,000 pounds of supplies. So to figure out, what are you going to take? So it gives you an idea. So what the site does is, and I really like this as a teacher, it gives you an idea of how you would want to teach or what kind of activity you're going to do, but it gives you the flexibility to make that look like what it would look like in your classroom. In my case, I would make, like I said, I would probably make some sort of worksheet with, X number of pounds of food, clothes weigh this much, bullets weigh this much, and so this would be kind of your embedded math and your embedded critical thinking. So, and then it kind of gives you an idea of what you would want to assess as a teacher. If the kids decide that they're going to bring no food or no bullets, I do a lesson with my Intro to Ed students where I bring my old machines in and have them, they play all the old games on the metal. It's like the last day before Christmas break, fun thing. And I've had students who do Oregon Trail and they have run out of food and I'm like, did you get bullets? And they're like, what? So, you have to, the kids have, does it make sense? Did your decisions make sense? And then, you can have some writing, because I always make my kids write, but even my foods kids, this is what we're taking, and this is why. We're taking maybe more food, we're taking extra oxygen, we're taking extra parts. Why are you taking what you're taking? I know that when you play the game, the actual Oregon Trail, you're kind of limited by the programming. And I think everybody knows at this point, Banker is easy mode.game. You buy all the things, and the game does not really limit. It limits how much you can take back from hunting, but it does not limit you to how much you can put in your wagon. I have put so much food in my wagon, it's not even funny. As a matter of fact, there was somebody speed ran Oregon Trail a few years ago on AGDQ, and it was like 5 minutes. So we've got a bunch of, it's got a bunch of these embedded lessons. Please don't crash. So, and then you can have your kids, what you would do is you would have the kids make the decision, you would walk around, you say, okay, yes, and then if you could have the kids actually spend their gold and get, these are placeholders, oxen. Again, not actually programmed on the back end, so you can just take, it doesn't there's no interaction between your inventory and your gold. Could probably be fixed in the back end by someone who knew what they were doing. So not me. I do not know how to program. I think this is based on Bedrock. I don't think this is in Java, and it doesn't really matter because I'm not a programmer. But but it gives the kids that visceral feeling of spending and a limited inventory. So we've got our trail learning. But I just think it's cute. They've got all those stores that they built and they make it look. So here's your blacksmith. Here's and see, it's just wool. Line of people who are super excited. All the different. So we're gonna set out on the trail. What I really like is that they did a really good job with this of actually kind of building some of the landmarks. What am I doing on time? What?
Like 8 minutes. Right?
Oh, okay. I said 45 minutes in the thing.
Next one's at 9:15.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna hurry up then. Sorry. All right. So they did a real nice job of. That's why we're in this mode. I get going. I'm very passionate about teaching, and I get going in a hurry. So you can help this person, and literally it's just using Minecraft. It's just an activity the kids can do. So all of these stops that I'm going to pass by have embedded activities. River crossing, there's an activity for figuring embedded science and math, figuring out currents and drift, and figuring out how deep is it, how much drift is there, what decision do you want to make? Another random human. I have cholera. So it gives me the... So you get cholera, you get dysentery, and you get to... So trail learning, this is Fort Kearney. So it's literally just window dressing. What would you want others to know? So this is another embedded writing lesson. Write a public service announcement for others on the trail, like getting cholera. So you get cholera, you get there, you do a lesson about what were the hazards that people faced on the Oregon Trail. So that's trading posts, trader, again, window dress. A lot of window dressing. But the idea is just to kind of give the kids... It's a framework around which all of these lessons are built. So here's Chimney Rock.
Are they doing this one by one, or is there a group of them?
You could do either way,
Okay.
depending on how big your classroom is and how many resources you have. So if you're lucky enough where all the kids in my county, all the kids have Chromebooks which don't run Minecraft, so I would have to get like laptops or a computer lab, Chimney Rock. And I would probably have to put them in groups because I wouldn't have enough resources. And if you were in a district where you had, it does have hunting. Press button to start the hunt. I did not buy any ammunition, so we can't hunt. But when you press this button, stuff comes out, but it's just Minecraft animals. So here's a sheep. There's a cow. I'm in creatives. I can totally cheat and go over the fence. What? And punch them. I can punch this pig if I feel like it.
Oh, so the arrows come out of the...
No, that's where those are dispensers. So, where's the trail? Yeah, don't get lost. Kids would probably get lost, and it's an open world, so the kids can build along the way. You can have them build their own community. I think I've seen where people have had them build their own community at the end. Talk about the Pony Express. So you can teach them about the Pony Express. So think about what would be available at a frontier fort. Native American settlements over here.
When they play together, are they all in the same world at the same time, or are they all in their own?
You can set that again. How do you want to set it up? Do you want to set it up server type, or do you want to let them all have their own instance? You can do it either way. I've never actually taught with this. This is a little below the level that I usually teach. I'm teaching, first of all, I teach home economics, and second of all, I'm teaching 9th to 12th graders. This is a little bit below. My students, even if I was teaching social studies, my students would be like, you want us to do what? Like, you want us to do what? They'd enjoy the Minecraft part, but the lessons would have to be scaled up to something that would be more appropriate. So it's cold. Here's Independence Rock.
Is that randomized when it gets to little things like that? Like
No, it's set in the,
time period?
it's basically in the same order that you would encounter them in the actual game. So trail learning, this is about the fact that people engraved their name on this rock. And it gives you, so there's these little chalkboards where you could put your name, pepperoni and cheese. But yeah, no, all of the settlements and all of the stops are hard-coded into the world, because it's literally like if you were to play it alongside a regular Oregon Trail. So about fur trading. very social studies oriented, but it's got some better. Here's a wagon on fire. What? Yeah, choplifter. Oh no, the wagon. So again, some the things that would happen to you in the game. Your wagon catches fire. Soda Springs. So it talks about you can learn about the science behind why Soda Springs was basically the science behind the bubbles and the fact that it's essentially a hot spring. So like I said, it's a curriculum that's meant for a more broad classroom. The forts and finding civilization. Let me zip through this real quick. Inadequate grass. I found the desert. We're almost there. Giant lizard. I have no idea what the giant lizard is. Yeah, I know, right? Giant lizard. I have no idea why the giant lizard is there. So the kids would run the trail, and then at the end of you get to Oregon, which I'm trying to get to as quickly as I can. We're almost there. Because this is the river right here. This would be going over the river. So this is Oregon. For real. It's Oregon. We're here. Yay. So over here we've got people building their settlement. So at the end of it, you could have your kids, start building themselves a settlement. This is an open Minecraft. This is a regular Minecraft world. You can dig down. You can get resources. You can build. You can do whatever. So I wanted to show how the world was built in Minecraft, how you would use it. I know I ran a little bit longer than I meant to. But if you have any questions, I'm around all week. And thanks for getting up early and joining me.
All right, thanks, Kate. I don't think we have time for questions now, but you can grab her afterward. So next up we have Mark Lemmer talking about time travel and debugging.
Running AV this morning? Yes, exactly. Oh man, we're in trouble. Check, check, check.
That's it.
Okay. Now for the projector fun. It's my favorite part every year. I live in fear. For everybody's computer, it just works, but mine, I guarantee you it won't. I have a way of making that thing happen. Look at that.
Take it away, Mark.
Okay, awesome, excellent. See if I can balance all this on here at the same time. Okay. Good morning. Thank you for coming. I'm Mark Lemmert, and today I'm going to be sharing some of the new content that my teammates and I at 6502 Workshop have created for our A.P.P.L.E. Sword and Sorcery RPG, Noxarchaeist, and doing that at the same time while demonstrating techniques for troubleshooting intermittent assembly language bugs using time travel in the Micro M8 emulator, and if I'm really feeling up to it, maybe I'll throw in some juggling and card tricks at the same time. See what we can do here. Okay, so let's talk about bugs. As many of us know, intermittent bugs are among some of the most difficult bugs to solve. That's because it's so hard to, or can be so hard to reproduce the conditions that trigger the bug. For example, in a role-playing game, an intermittent bug might only occur if there's a wizard on the screen who happens to be in tile grid position 10, 10, and maybe only if the Z key was pressed, but only if the A key was pressed just before the Z key were pressed. I mean, it can get really crazy like that. It's just its own special realm of insanity to torture developers. The only thing worse, I think, is the dreaded Heisen bug, which disappears when you try to isolate it. It's really creepy. I don't even like to think about it. So I have personally spent full work days, or the equivalent thereof, chasing after and solving intermittent bugs until time travel in emulator form was available in Micromate. So what time travel does is it periodically records the machine state, either periodically or actually on every CPU clock cycle if it's set for that mode, which is the mode you need for debugging. And it stores those machine states in a recording. You know, basically think like, you know, it's a VCR. Well, if we're going to think retro about it, VCR, or think recording on your iPhone, as you prefer. But what you can do is rewind the recording and go back to a previous point in time in the execution of your program or of your game session from the perspective of the player of a game. And that's incredibly useful when it comes to intermittent bugs because you can rewind the recording to a point just before or roughly before an intermittent bug occurred. And as a result, there's no guessing on what keys did you press to trigger the bug, or you know what mobs were on screen or NPCs were on screen. None of that is left to guessing because that's all baked into the recording. And as a result, rather than potentially full work days going into solving intermittent bugs, you know, even some of the most difficult ones I've been able to solve in a few hours or less using time travel and these techniques. And it looks like actually there's an intermittent bug in the slideshow. I better get on that. Always have to throw in one corny joke in all my sessions. It's become a tradition. So Micromate was developed by A.P.P.L.E at Paleotronic. And last year they came from Australia here to Kansasfest. And as some of you may remember, they gave a session talking about talking about Micromate's capability to integrate modern graphics with Apple II graphics within the emulator screen, which is some pretty phenomenal stuff. They didn't mention time travel once. And then, later on in the week, I think over lunch, dinner, something, casually came up in conversation. And I was like, what? You have time travel? I mean, seriously, I was like the first accountant to see VisiCalc, who pretty much passed out in shock over the magnitude of what it meant, you know, for day-to-day work. Because at that point, you know, I'd been working on Noxer for several years, troubleshooting intermittent bugs through the tedious and arduous method of the past, what is now the past. So, needless to say, I was really excited about its potential for debugging, and actually had been excited about its potential for debugging since I had first seen time travel demonstrated by Tom Phelps, I believe it was roughly 2 years ago, in his AIEE emulator. And you know, I want to give a big shout out, you know, here to Tom for everything he did and is doing in pioneering the technology. And from what he tells me, AIEE is going to be worth the wait for when he puts it out available publicly. So thank you, Tom. Okay, let's get started with the main event here. I'll Get Noxercast booted up in Micromate. Got our double high-res splash screen there that we showed last year, talked about the technology about. It's basically just a few art tweaks there since last time. We made the eyes a bit more fiery. Or actually, it's more a case of we lost the data for some of the fire in the eyes, and I didn't even realize it until our artist and programmer who did some of the work on it got together and figured that out, and I was like, oh wow, they were supposed to be like this. This looks awesome. Anyway, let's get booted up. Okay, so we got some new stuff here right away on the screen. We now have ruins of ancient castles and keeps in Noxercast. It's basically a style of dungeon in the game. There's also subterranean style dungeons, and a third dungeon style which we haven't revealed yet. And we've also added a stylish white font, what we hope is stylish anyway, which is on display here. And that was just in the last couple of weeks that got put in. So let's go ahead and enter this ruin. So we demonstrated our Mockingboard driver last year, and we've refined the implementation and added more music. We've got, I believe it's around 12 tracks in total, and they play in 10 to 20 second bursts when you enter a different location, like a town, castle, dungeon, or combat. Basically like when the scene changes, it gives that 10 to 20 second burst to kind of set the tone. Different approach than what I typically had seen in 8-bit RPGs, and it's something that we're going to kind of pioneer the style and just see how it goes. So from here, I'm actually going to turn off music so we can focus on the debugging, but I was actually going to mention one more thing with the art. So each map type in Noxercast, towns, castles, dungeons, ruins, etc., has its own 256 tile set, so we're pushing around 1,000 tiles in total in the game. The ruin tile set that we see here was Bill Geege, our artist, started out creating that by making a copy of the castle tile set, and then just having a blast punching holes in the walls and snapping chains on the drawbridge, and basically ruining the place. So as we walk through looking for bugs, we'll get to see more of the ruins artwork as well. And let's get to that. We'll go find our bug. So in combat, I'm just going to hit escape to abort out of combat today for expediency. That's a playtest key. You won't be so lucky in the actual game. You will get to beep if you press escape. Okay, there's our bug. We got all these question marks at the bottom of the screen, and the game's unresponsive to key presses at this point, and this immediately smells like an intermittent bug to me because seems to be happening when entering combat, but it didn't happen the first time we entered in combat. It happened the second time. So does it happen every 2 times, every 10 times? That's the intermittent bugs. Mileage will vary as to exactly how intermittent they are. So we actually, I did not have time travel enabled when this occurred, and the reason is because Micromate will slow down a bit when time travel is on, and as a result, my approach is when playtesting is I just playtest, and every once in a while when I encounter an intermittent bug, then I'll go back, turn time travel on, reproduce the bug, and then troubleshoot from there. Most intermittent bugs, I found I can reproduce in 5 minutes or so. I've only had a few that were, like they only occurred once a week or something crazy like that. Clearly this is not ideal. Really the holy grail here would be you have time travel on all the time. You have your beta testers with time travel on all the time, and they hit a bug, they just send you a copy of the recording file. That's the future. This is a rough state of time travel implementation. From a developer perspective, though, it's still a usable tool to save a whole bunch of time. So one of my hopes today for anybody that is interested in using time travel for development is you can refer back to this video and observe exactly what I did, exactly what buttons I clicked, because there's still polishing going on with the user interface, and if you click the wrong thing, it will fail silently, all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to give you the formula here today, so to speak, on how to do it. So we'll start out here by rebooting the emulator. And when we get booted up, we'll go through the process to enable time travel. Okay, in Micromate, enter the debugger as Control-Shift-B, B for bugger. Then go to Settings, click Record All CPU Changes, and click Submit, and that's really important so that it's doing a machine state on every clock cycle and not just periodically, which you have to do in order for breakpoints to be honored, which we'll get into here shortly. Then click this recording button. It's off by grade, off by default. Click that so that it turns on. Then click the continue button here to resume your program operation. Then go back to the Micromate application window. And this light in the upper right-hand corner, that signifies that the recording is on, the time travel recording is on. So now basically the mission here is to reproduce the bug again. Didn't happen in the first combat, just like before. Didn't happen in the second combat this time, though it did last time. I'm actually noticing the response rate here is a lot better than it was. I'm not seeing that so much of that sluggishness. Micromate has auto updates. When you launch the application, it'll automatically update. So April might have done some improvements on that just recently. So I'll have to try that again as far as like using time travel all the time rather than just selectively. Okay, there's our bug again. So we're return to the debugger, and we need to click pause, which I can't see on my shrunken screen here. Oh boy. Yeah, I'll have to look at the big screen. There we go. It's all shrunken down on my monitor. Okay, so we're paused. And now if we go to the video tab, we get to see a readout of the video screen right in the debugger. And what we're going to do now is we're going to set some breakpoints. So what a breakpoint does is it stops the CPU when the program counter reaches a specific memory address. So to give an analogy in AppleSoft, like let's say you were troubleshooting a bug in AppleSoft and you wanted to stop the program at line 200 because that was going to be helpful to know if the program got to that point versus it never reached line 200 and went somewhere else. So in AppleSoft, you might in line 200 put in an end statement to stop the program there. Breakpoints are roughly the machine level equivalent of that. So we're going to enter in 3 of them. And this, there's a menu here for breakpoints. Go to add breakpoint. It's important here to type in the $sign, otherwise it'll assume that you're typing in decimal. Just a tip there. 15 dB is the first one. This is the entrance routine to the attack command. And we'll put in 15FF. Don't know if it needs to be caps, but I'm not taking any chances. So this is the disk read routine that loads the combat setup program from disk into memory. 1608 is the call to the combat setup routine after it's been loaded from disk into memory. Whoops. I think I clicked reset there. Didn't mean to do that. 1608. Okay, got them all in. Okay, so in summary, what's going on here is I'm picking breakpoints that are along the path in memory that I anticipate the program counter traveling as it relates to the activities that I observed going on screen when the bug occurred. And this really comes down to knowing your program inside and out. And it's not really specific to time travel. You know, all emulators with debuggers basically have breakpoints. You know, so it's really a part of a general debugging set of techniques. And the advantage of time travel, to recap, is that it allows you to reproduce the bug so that you can apply general debugging techniques. Otherwise, general debugging techniques are pretty useless if you can't reproduce the bug. Now, when I say general debugging techniques, that is modern general debugging. In the 1980s, you know, they would have had like printouts of the code, and I think actually like had to read it or something. So, you know, I mean, that's we're not going to do that today. We're going to take advantage of our advancements here and use time travel and use breakpoints. Okay. So now we got our breakpoints in. We're going to fast forward the recording and observe, do we hit any of the breakpoints? Do we hit all of the breakpoints? Do we only hit some of the breakpoints? And that's going to tell us more about where in the program the bug is. And I need to find the fast forward button. I'm not, it's rendering differently here with the screen size. It is not on the screen. That is interesting. I don't.
Command minus to shrink the font size.
Thank you, Chris. You saved the session. I don't think I would have thought of that. Okay. So here's our fast forward button. So if we click this, we'll see if we hit a breakpoint.
So
Wait, I messed this up. Sorry, question?
I was just going to say, where are you fast forwarding from? Because you stopped it.
Right.
Okay.
I got to back up yet. I skipped the backing up. I fast forwarded further into the bug.
Okay.
So we need to rewind first and rewind to the point just before the bug occurred.
So is it automatically rewinding as you're doing that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. I'm not doing. You can adjust the rewind speed, but I don't want to do it too fast, or I can overshoot. Okay, I think we're way past the point at this point. Okay, so now we'll fast forward. The flash forward speed is adjustable. However, I've had best results using it on the lowest setting. Again, this is part of it's a emerging technology. Okay, we got the question marks, and we're blowing right past the bake points, and that should not be happening. So, yet again, another example of this technology is an early state. What I did wrong, and when I say wrong, I mean wrong in the context of how to use the technology in its currently state. This should not matter, and will not matter, I'm sure, when things get, developed further. When we found the bug, I hit fast forward. I should not have done that. There's no need to do that, which is probably why there's still a bug in Micromate lurking there. What I should have done is immediately done a rewind on the recording to go to the point before the bug. That's the scenario that's been focused on, that I've worked with April at Paleotronic to make sure that can be done, and I never once tried to fast forward into the bug before, so that's off into no man's land that nobody's really been troubleshooting on that. So, good example of where things are at if you want to actually do this. Those are good example of things to be aware of. Now, obviously, we're trying to show here, the result, the positive result of all this. So we can still do that. When I'm doing this, in the course of daily work, I'll occasionally make a mistake like that as well, and it's not the end of the world. All it means is basically rebooting and reproducing the bug again, and then doing it correctly. So we'll go ahead and do that, and it'll go a lot faster this time. I'll just cut right to the chase. I was doing a lot of explanation before, so just bear with me a little bit. It won't take too long to do this again. And just for good measure, I'm going to actually quit the application and restart it. Back into the bugger to set our breakpoints. Oops, I've got to enable time travel first. Whoops. Okay, thank you. And honestly, that might have been enough to screw it up. We'll find out.
So you don't need to set your breakpoints now?
No, I want to do those after.
Yep.
So now we'll pause. Now we back up in the recording. That's what we should have done before. Okay, so now we're at the point, actually I'm going to go back just a tad further. Question marks are gone. We've got the direction selector text on the screen, but I'm going to go just a tad bit before that. So I'm just going to put in 1 and see if I mess something up or not. So we should hit the first one. So I'm going to click fast forward to see if we hit the breakpoint, the first breakpoint that I entered.
Is this an actual bug you've encountered during development?
No, quite honest travel stuff, it's perfectly sufficient. But conveniently, since I did insert it, I do actually know how to trigger it so we don't have to wander around aimlessly. So I think I probably messed this up again. Probably because I didn't click submit on record CPU changes. Yeah, it's blowing past the breakpoint and it shouldn't be.
So Mark, one quick question. So it'll hit the breakpoint even though you're doing fast forward. You don't have to hit play or something?
Correct. Don't hit play. I've not had good results hitting play. You'd think that it would play.
Yes.
But I don't go there. I use fast forward. So this of course adds a little bit of a dimension here in figuring out, okay, did my breakpoint not hit because it shouldn't have been hit, or did it not hit because I messed something up and bumped the wrong buttons and didn't do things in the right order. Nonetheless, again, we're comparing full days of work versus a few hours of work. Using the technology in its early state here of time travel. Okay, so apologize for the delay here, but we're going to do this one more time. Okay, whoops. Record CPU changes, submit. Time travel on. Continue. Now we're going to rewind to before the bug. Okay, that's where I was trying to get to before the directional prompt, because then I know we're not in the combat attack routine at all. So now we'll put the breakpoints back in. We should be good here. Okay, so we got our 3 breakpoints in, the recording's paused. Now we're going to click fast forward and see what breakpoints we hit. Okay, so in the lower left it says recording paused by breakpoint at 15 dB. So we hit the first breakpoint, the entrance to the combat attack routine. So now we click fast forward again to see, do we hit the second breakpoint? And we did. At 15 FF we hit the second breakpoint, and that was the disk load routine to read the combat setup code into memory. And we'll click fast forward again to see if we hit the third breakpoint. No, we blow right past the third breakpoint, put question marks on the screen, and totally confuse the player. So that tells us, well, the problem is somewhere between the second breakpoint and the third breakpoint. What I would normally do at this point would be to set breakpoints deeper and deeper into the disk load routine for combat setup, since that's where the second breakpoint was at the start of that. But I've done that work in advance for efficiency, and have identified the exact memory address where the bug is occurring. So we can just set another breakpoint and jump right to it to kind of see what it looks like. But first, we'll rewind the recording to get back to the second breakpoint. So there we are, we're back at 15FF, the second breakpoint. So now we'll put in .8394. Click fast forward again. Okay, so here we are, we hit 8394, and in the machine readout on the left, we can see at 8394, we've got an LDA 09, and in particular there, we've got at 8394, we've got that A9 opcode, the immediate mode opcode for LDA, and that should be an 8D, and I know it should be an 8D because the machine listing file says that it should be in 8D, the opcode for STA and absolute address mode. So the machine listing file is produced by the cross assembler, which shows the memory addresses and machine opcodes on the left, and the assembly language mnemonics on the right, and is a useful tool in this situation. But if it seems like, you know, kind of going through, looking for a needle in a haystack to find something like this, that's actually not too far off. But there are some ways to narrow it down. Like if I had encountered this bug in the wild, I would have, as mentioned before, after I saw that the third breakpoint wasn't hit, I would have gone back to the second breakpoint, set more breakpoints into the disk read routine for combat setup where the problem seemed to be. And I would have eventually noticed that the program counter had run away into a location of memory that didn't make any sense. Because where the problem is, this STA C009, that's enabling auxiliary bank switch memory, which wasn't happening because the value in memory was wrong. And that would make the program counter run away to someplace in main memory where it shouldn't be. So once I saw that, I would backtrack to the point where the program counter was in a place that made sense. I eventually would have remembered that, oh yeah, auxiliary bank switch RAM should be active there, and then check the memory state flags and notice, oh, it's actually not active right now. Traced backwards till I got to the instruction that should have enabled auxiliary BSR, which is the 8394. And then I would have sat there and puzzled for some unknown amount of time, well, why isn't it actually getting enabled? We've got the command right there, and eventually I would have thought, oh, you know, I really ought to check what's actually in memory and see does it match what should be in memory per the machine listing file, and then bam, I would have seen it as being different, and then gone throughout the process of tracking down, well, why, what happened. I was going to go into more detail on that, but for expediency here in session time, just suffice it to say that that process involves setting like a write memory trap to get the debugger to tell you when did that specific memory address change. That's something Micromate can do. I believe MAME can do it, memory traps, read-write memory traps. But that would be the next step to actually kind of pin it down. But let's continue on here with the rest of the session. I've got some updates on Nox Archaist in 2019. Let's cut over to that. And I just have to find... I'm all out of order on my note cards. My apologies. Okay. All right, so let's talk about what's new with Nox Archaist in 2019. First, I would like to thank everybody who supported the Kickstarter. It was an incredible success thanks to you. It's a... Thank you. Thank you. It's a great honor to be the first crowd-funded Apple II game that I'm aware of, and now we can all party like it's 1989. And so this is the final art rendering of the final cloth map that will be in the box set of Nox Archaist. And I have a copy of that here. This is the final prototype of the map in cloth, and this is what will, go to the printer here in a matter of weeks or a month to print off hundreds of them. That'll be virtually identical to this. And also the final prototype of the game box that the many hundreds will be based on. So I'm going to pass these around if anybody would like a closer look. Thank you, Chris. It almost was just a picture. Chris just got those prototypes ordered, and they miraculously came just in time for Kansasfest, but I thought I might just be showing you a picture here. So fortunately, that worked. Fortunately, that worked out. Okay, so earlier this year, we announced that we will have at least beta support for the Mockingbird. Not Mockingbird. Mockingboard. There we go. So pretty excited about that, and many thanks to Eric Rangel and Tom Porter for their help getting that operational. Nox Archaist was on several podcasts this year. Lost Sectors did a preview and a live stream of the alpha build, which has a large, fully playable area. They also did an article in Juice.js last December doing a compare and contrast on the Bard's Tale remastered games that had been recently released. They contrasted them with the original Apple II versions. Also did a interview on Spam Humbug, podcast of the Ultima Dragons. Talked about game design differences and similarities with Ultima. A couple weeks ago was on Matt Chat that did a live stream, showed some more combat content. Talked a lot with Matt about interesting topics like the pros and cons of level scaling. Nox Archaist has no level scaling, which we think is going to be a good thing. And if you'd like to find out why, it's in the Matt Chat live stream replay. And if you're interested in more details on the game, highly encourage you to check out all these different podcasts. There's lots and lots of details in there. So perhaps the most exciting thing to me this year was collaborating with Richard Garriott for Lord British to make an appearance in Nox Archaist, which he graciously tweeted out on Twitter a few months ago. And people have asked what exactly Lord British's role in the game will be. So I'm not going to give everything away, of course, but I can say, or will say, that it will be more than a cameo. He'll be involved in at least one major plot point, and will guide the player in a variety of ways throughout the game. Nox Archaist is a hard game. It's a large game, so I'm hoping that if the player is kind of swimming in clues, quests, and puzzles, that it'll be a fun mechanic to have the option to go talk to Lord British and maybe get a little bit of help on what to do next. So another question that has come up a few times is, can Lord British be killed in Nox Archaist? Clearly Richard loves getting this question. So for my part, I can say that no frigates or lead plates will be allowed in his presence while he stays with us in Valley, the world of Nox Archaist. I've actually studied and accounted for the loopholes that led to the unintentional ability to kill Lord British in some of the early Ultimas. So y'all can consider this a challenge. Give it your best shot and see if you can do it without hacking the binary file, Peter. So we're also going to give Richard the first box set off of Chris Torrance's assembly line, along with a certificate of appreciation, thanking him for his contributions to the Apple II and to gaming. And we got that certificate here, and it is titled From Your Friends at 6502 Workshop in Kansasfest. So I'm going to pass it around if anyone would like to add their name or sign their name in thanks as well. Welcome to do so on the inside cover here on the back. And also have a announcement here that after the 8-bit version of Nox Archaist is released as a separate project and a separate product, we have formally decided that we're going to undertake a Nox Archaist 2GS project, and thank you. And Burger Becky herself is going to lead the project and make it happen. Thank you. So, you know, the 8-bit version, of course, will run on the 2GS, but the 2GS version will have the GS enhanced graphics and sound that all of us GS users know and love. So in conclusion, if you don't have the Micromate emulator and would like it, it's available at paleotronic.com. And thank us again, April and Melody, for your work on Micromate and getting time travel up and running. And thanks again, Tom Phelps, for pioneering the technology. I don't think I'd be standing here talking about it if it wasn't for you.
All right. Am I on? No. Yes. All right. Thanks, Mark, so much. I'm going to take my liberty to take here the first question. What if someone here didn't manage to back the Kickstarter? Is there a way that they can still order a copy of the game?
There is. We've got a pre-order set up on the website, noxarchaist.com. So if you'd like to take advantage of the pre-order discount, just go ahead and go to noxarchaist.com and click the buttons.
Cool. All right. We have time for maybe one quick question before the break.
Shut up and take my money.
Will do. I don't think that was a question. That was a statement.
Questions? All right. So thanks again, Mark. We have. Oh, go ahead.
Did you get to the end of Wolfenstein yet?
No, I made it to Colonel. So after that is General, then Field Marshal. So I have to beat Colonel, beat General, and then beat Field Marshal for my quest here to be complete of reliving my childhood feat of winning on Field Marshal. But by the end of the week, I'm determined to do it once again. So.
All right. Thanks again, Mark. So we have a break now until 10:15, and then we will resume with Ken Gagney talking about your 8-bit websites. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, let's get started. Oh, take it away, Ken.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. Welcome all. Thank you for coming to Kansasfest 2019, and thank you for waking up. It's still early on a Friday, so thank you for being here. So this isn't quite about designing Apple II websites. It's more about website management tools. How many people here have a website of their own? So maybe about half of you. How many of you who don't have a website would like one? Yeah, at least 2 people, yeah. It's great to have a website. It's great to have an online presence that you own as opposed to Facebook, who's going to just rifle through all your photos, and FaceApp that uploads them all to Russia, and then Flickr that deletes them all because you're not paying a premium fee, and MySpace and Friendster that just delete everything, and Google who gets rid of stuff left and right like Google Plus and Google Reader. And no, your website is your own. You don't have to tell people, here's my links to me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, and all these others. Like, no, here's my website, one link, my central repository of where to find everything about me. And you own it. You can put whatever you want on there without worrying about, is it too big? Is it not the right file type? No, it's yours. So I want to talk to you about, if you want to get started with websites, here's how you get started. If you already have a website, here's how to make it better, or how to troubleshoot it, or how to promote it on social media. So it's a variety of tools I'll be going over today. First, a little bit about me. Who am I? That's me. Hi. So I am the editor and publisher of Juice.js, the last remaining print publication dedicated to the Apple II computer, and the only remaining print publication, longest running one. I created the website Retro Roundup, which is your one-stop shop for Apple II news, also Commodore 64, Atari, Tandy, TRS-80, bunch of other stuff. I currently host 2 podcasts. One is called Polygamer. It's a monthly show where I interview marginalized voices in the games industry about their experiences, ambitions, and accomplishments. And also I co-host with my friend Sabriel a Star Trek podcast called Transporter Lock, where we review each new episode of Discovery, which is the best Star Trek show currently on the air. There's also a YouTube channel that I sometimes host called Game Bits. It currently has about 15 million views and 80,000 subscribers. And I have uploaded some Apple II videos to that before, including from Kansasfest, so check that out. And I also teach at Emerson College in Boston in the publishing department. I teach a graduate course about electronic publishing overview, which I talked a little bit about yesterday on Sarah's fantastic panel. So this all sounds great, but you may be wondering, okay, Ken, magazines, podcasts, YouTube, teaching, that's swell. What does that have to do with websites? So you're a little skeptical, I understand that. But all those things I just listed are things I do for fun. They're not my day job. My day job, a while back, was working at MIT Medical, which is an on-campus healthcare facility for the students and faculty of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. It's not just a school nurse you go to when you're sick. They actually have primary care, urgent care, OBGYN, dentistry, mental health, etc. While I was there, I helped convert a website from Dreamweaver to Drupal. So basically static HTML to a content management system. And for that project, our team actually won the highest internal recognition award that MIT offers. From there, I went to Mass Eye and Ear, which is an otolaryngology hospital in Boston. That's ear, nose, and throat, and eyes. And from there, I helped manage a Sitecore website, which is another CMS, as well as Joomla. And I managed to launch a few WordPress websites. Now, despite these impressive accomplishments, I actually hated my career. Each job was worse than the last one, and I spent about 12 years on this downward decline. And then a year and a half ago, I hit the freaking jackpot, and I got a job I absolutely adore. I work at Automatic, which is a fully distributed company that manages WordPress.com. If you go to WordPress.com and you sign up for a free website today, that's the company I work for. Specifically, I work at WordPress VIP as a technical account engineer. So WordPress.com is for consumers. You pay anywhere from $0 to $25 a month to start a website. WordPress VIP is for enterprise level clients like Facebook, Hulu, NBC Sports, 538, who all have WordPress websites. And our hosting starts at $1,000 a month. So that may not be of interest to you, but if it does, talk to me afterward. As I mentioned, I'm a technical account engineer, which let me make sure my sound is set up to go through the HDMI. I'm sorry, I should have done that before because I do have sound for this presentation. Output is Epson, is that correct? As opposed to... okay. And then I would choose headphones as my output. Great. So back to the presentation. Thank you. So I worked at MIT Medical, and then I worked at Mass Ioneer, and I hated it, and then I worked at Automatic, and now I love it. I work as a technical account engineer, which is a title that doesn't exactly translate to other industries or communities, like what is a TAE? So I just tell them this.
I deal with the goddamn customers so the engineers don't have to. I have people skills. I am good at dealing with people. Can't you understand that? What the hell is wrong with you people?
That's me. That's what I do. And it's laughable, but people skills are actually really important and really hard to find in the tech industry. So I really love my job. So I've learned a lot about a lot of different kinds of websites, what can go wrong with them, and how to make them better, whether you're using a CMS that is open source, like Joomla or WordPress, a CMS that's closed source, like Sitecore, or no CMS at all, like Dreamweaver. And there are some common problems and solutions to all these websites, and that's what I'll be talking about today. So it's the criteria for the tools that I'm going to be showing you are they have to be free, so I'm not trying to sell you anything, although there are premium versions of these services. So you sign up for free, and if you like what you see, you can get more of it for an additional cost. In-game purchases, DLC, whatever. Online, so it doesn't matter if you're running Mac, Windows, Linux, iOS, or Apple II. These are all programs that you access through your web browser. So I guess it does matter if you're running an Apple II, because that would be challenging. But basically, you don't need to install anything on your computer. As I mentioned, it's not specific to a CMS. So even though I work at WordPress VIP, I'm not here as a representative. I'm not trying to sell you anything, even though it's the best CMS in the world. You don't have to use it if you don't want to. We can still be friends, just more acquaintances maybe. I'm not going to go over team collaboration or project management tools. I'm not going to be showing you Asana, Jira, GitHub, etc. That's a completely different talk. And I'm not going to be showing you anything that's too mainstream. I would waste your time if I got up here and said, hey, have you heard of this thing called Dropbox? I think you should check it out. It might be the next big thing. No. So hopefully, even if you manage a website already, you'll find some tools here that you haven't heard of. I gave a talk similar to this at a WordPress meetup where one of the developers of the latest version of WordPress was in the audience, and he said, Ken, I haven't heard of 10 of those 25 tools, which is my last criteria. There are going to be 25 of them. And I have broken down those 25 tools into 6 categories. So it's sort of like 6 lightning talks, really. Domain discovery, domain investigation, troubleshooting, tech support, images, and audio are the 6 categories I'll be reviewing today. So let's start with domains. The first one I want to show you is domainer.com, DOMAINR.com. And there will be a link at the end of this presentation where you can get links to all the tools, so you don't have to furiously scribble notes. Domainer.com is where you punch in a name and find out what's available for you to buy for a domain name. It tells you what's available, what's for sale, what's already taken. And it supports multiple top-level domains. So that means .com, .net, .org, .uk, .gs, .pizza, .horse, .sexy, etc. Those are all top-level domains that you can buy. It's ridiculous. And if the one that you want is not available, it will suggest alternatives. So for example, here, I'm using my brand name, GameBits, and it's a little small on my screen, but it's recommending GameBits.com is taken, GameBits.net is taken, GameBits.org are taken. Those are all by me, I own those. But GameBits.co is not taken. That's available. I can go buy that right now, or any of you could, and snipe it out from under me and then sell it to me later. GameBits.app, GameBits.us, and then it also goes like GameB.it for Italy. So it's interpreting my name in a lot of different ways and showing you, hey, here are permutations of how you can get your brand name if the one you want isn't available, or if you just want to squat on all of them. So it's super handy like that. So if I find one that I want, I can actually just click Buy Now right there, and it'll send me to a registrar to buy the domain name right from that link. And if it's not available, I can make an offer. I can go to the person who already owns that website and say, hey, I want to buy the domain name from you. That's actually how I got GameBits.com. I bought .net back in the 90s because .com was taken. And I emailed the guy and said, hey, I own .net. I want to buy .com too. And he said, okay, $20,000. This was before the .com bubble burst. And I said, no, thank you. So I waited 15 years, and then I emailed him again. I said, hey, remember me? Same guy. I probably hit reply on the same thread 15 years later. I said, I'd like to buy your domain name. And he said, okay, $800. I said, okay. And I bought it because there are tools out there to help you with that, and I'll get to that in a moment. Noam.com is very similar to Domainer. This is a tool where you punch in your name or a brand name or whatever it is that you want to own on the internet, and it lets you find where those are taken on social media. It also scans domain names and trademarks, but its most useful tool for me is social media. So for example, I can punch in GameBits, and it'll tell you, GameBits is already taken on Etsy, Imager, LinkedIn, Quora, Facebook, Instagram, but it's not taken on Blogger, BuzzFeed, Issue, etc. And so if I have not yet created a brand name, I can go out there and say, is this going to be one that's going to be confused with other people because they're already using that name? Or is this something that I can uniquely capitalize on? Or if it's a domain I already own, where am I not already representing myself on social media? You can also scan down into very specific categories. So here are all the entertainment social media categories. The previous page was an overview of the most popular ones, but these are genre divided. So entertainment, health, information. These are all places where GameBits either is or is not taken. So it's really useful for that. SDBot is another tool that I alluded to moments ago, where it tells you how much a domain is worth in United States American dollars. So for example, I can punch in gamebits.net. It's worth $250. I thought it would be worth more because I've owned it for 20 years. It has a lot of history. You would think it has good search engine optimization or SEO, a lot of inbound links, but it's only $250. So if somebody came to me and said, hey, I want to buy your website, that's the minimum that I would accept. For my own personal value for that site, I'd probably offer more. But this is how I found out when I wanted to buy GameBits.com how much I should pay him. He said it's worth $800. I went to this website, I punched in GameBits.com, it said $800. I'm like, that's a good price, that's fair. This is based on how much traffic it gets, how many other websites are linking to it, etc. So how much am I likely to gain from owning this website? And it estimated that amount. So it's a good third-party objective estimate of what a website is worth, as opposed to what you subjectively think something is worth. GameBits, $1 million at least. Dotomator.com. This will generate a domain name for you if you can't think of one. It'll just come up with something for you. So, for example, it'll create instant buzz with names like JetChat. Hey, that's a good brand name. That sounds like a buzzy thing that kids would use, right? Or how about Cabler? Sure, I can buy all your DB25 pin cables at cabler.com. Or maybe Mizu, right? I mean, that sounds like something we're using nowadays, isn't it? Yuzu, Mizu, we all zoo, right? Feed Nation. Oh my gosh, I love reading Feed Nation. They have the best listicles, right? And they're going to be competing with BuzzFeed any day now. Or maybe Zoolane, right? You know, you can. It's one of those pet adoption services, but it's not just limited to dogs and cats. You can look up giraffes and kangaroos and elephants too. I want to go to Zoolane. I do want to point out, however, that this is Dotomator, not Do-Tomato-er. It's the same spelling, and I had to read it a couple times before I realized it's not Do-Tomato-er. So, I like tomatoes. But they actually do have some legitimate advice on this website about how to choose a good domain name and why you should use .com instead of any of those other fun top-level domains that you use. So it's sort of a silly tool, but it's backed by actual advice that is practical and usable when you're finding out a domain name. Yorls.org is one that I talked about in a lightning talk 2 years ago. It's a little bit different from the other tools I've mentioned. It's a URL shortener like TinyURL or Bitly. And what those tools do is they take a really long URL and break it down into one that's only like 5 or 6 characters long, which makes it much easier to share verbally, easier to type out, easier to see in social media. This is especially true back when Twitter had character limits that didn't take into account URLs. And a really long URL could be your entire tweet, so this could shorten it very easily. The difference with Yorls is it's not a website you go to, it's a tool that you install on your server. So if you have a hosting plan at DreamHost or Bluehost or GoDaddy, you can install Yorls, and now you have your own domain name shortener. So here is one that I run, and this is for my podcast Polygamer. I own the domain name PLYG.me. It's basically like the consonants and a vowel from the name Polygamer. So polygamy. That sounds bad. Anyway, and I can create short links to all my podcasts. So this is an index of all the URLs that I've created. And then I can also get analytics about how often has it been clicked, when has it been clicked, from where has it been clicked throughout the entire global world, and also where are they clicking it, where are they finding this, is it on Twitter, etc. So this has a lot of advantages over Bitly. For one, custom branding. You know, I have several instances of URLs. One is kgagney.com. Another is gamebits.tv. If I want to link to my PlayStation 4 unboxing video on YouTube, I can go to youtube.com and get that random string of characters, or I can just say, go to gamebits.tv/PS4. And that was much easier to memorize, and I just conveyed it to you verbally, which would never happen with the YouTube URL. So gamebits.tv, that's mine, that's not Bitly. Custom URLs. If I were to try to make Bitly, like bit.ly/PS4, somebody's already done that. That's taken. And I can't make a short URL with that same address because somebody else has already used it. With gamebits.tv, I can control it in its entirety. Nobody else is making links at gamebits.tv except me. So I can create /PS4 if I want to. And when the next model of PS4 came out, I made PS4 Pro as a short link. And I can change where those links go. So if I move my video, or if the link changes for some reason, or the link breaks, I can update where that short URL goes, which you can't do with Bitly or tinyURL. Once you make those links, they're fixed, they're static. But here I can go back and change this database very easily from this cool web-based GUI interface. GUI interface, that's like ATM machine or PIN number. I hate myself, I'm a monster. Sorry. But speaking of updating redirection, for example, a while back I interviewed a Twitch streamer named SlideTQ, and the day before I aired the podcast, I said, hey, here's a teaser for tomorrow's podcast. Click plyg.me/SlideTQ. And that link went to the page to subscribe to the podcast in iTunes, so that when the podcast came out the next day, they would already be subscribed and they would get it. Once the podcast came out the next day, I went back and I changed that link to instead go directly to that episode. So whether they were clicking that link before the episode ever came out or after it came out, they were going someplace that was meaningful at that point in time because I updated where the link went. It was super handy. Also, Bitly, bit.ly is Libya, which is not one of the most stable parts of the world. Something happens to Libya, something could happen to all your links, which is not great. Gamebits.tv, kgagging.com, all powered by open source software URLs. I own that database. I can download it. I can even make it publicly available. A2.click is a URLs-based shortener just for Apple II websites. And there actually is an undocumented way I've created where you can see all the short URLs that anybody has ever created on that site. Because I don't want A2.click to get hit by a bus and nobody knows where those links ever went. You can just download them for anybody to see. And if you do use WordPress, there's a plugin for that. You can create short URLs right from the WordPress editor. So when you're writing your post, you just say, here's the short URL I want it to be at this domain name. Drink break before we go into our next category. And how they're doing it so that you can copy it, because all the great artists copy. whois.icann.org. So whois is basically a command line tool that you can use to look up who owns a domain name. But you don't need to be familiar with the command line. You can use this web-based tool to find out. However, it's only if they've chosen to make that information public. You can register domains that they're private. So for example, here is me looking up gamebits.net. Again, that's me. And I've chosen to make my information private. So it just says Proxy Protection LLC. So you don't know my name, my address, my phone number, or my email address. If you have a website, it's a good idea to opt into this. It's available by default from a lot of registrars. Some registrars offer it as an additional fee for like $3 to $5 a year. But here's another example. I looked up fangamer.com because a few years ago, I was writing an article for PC World, and I needed to interview the founder of Fangamer, which is an online store. I scoured that website. I could not find any contact information for him, except for the part where it says, if you have a question about your order, put your order number here, and we'll get back to you. I didn't have an order. So what I did was I went to whois, punched in fangamer.com, and I came up with his name, Reed Young of Tucson, Arizona, and there's his email address. I emailed him. I said, Mr. Young, I'm writing an article for PC World. I would love to interview you. He said, sure, give me a call tomorrow at 10 a.m. He didn't give me his phone number, but it's right there in the Whois. So the next day at 10 a.m., I called the number in the Whois, and we had a lovely 1-hour chat, and I wrote my article for PC World. Would not have been possible without this tool. And he was not freaked out by it, which is very helpful. So, DNSlytics.com. So DNS, domain name servers, is what turns an alphanumeric name like google.com into a dotted address like 192.168.1.1 or whatever. And this is a very useful tool for finding out websites that have the same owner using Google Analytics. So actually not DNS. I'll get to DNS shortly. But Google Analytics is a way for you to track traffic to your website. It is a free tool, but it gives Google a lot of information about your website. And this is a way to find out, using that tool, where Google Analytics is being applied by the same person. So, for example, right here, I'm going to punch in, I go to gambits.net. I went to gambits.net, and I looked in the source code, and I found this information right here. This is Google Analytics code. It says UA 1888936-9. Google tracking code always begins with UA for Universal Analytics. So I take that number, I copy it into DNSlytics, I paste it right here, I type go, and I find all these other websites that are using the same Google Analytics tracking code. So if I was a third party, now I know that guy who unboxed the PS4 on YouTube also likes to blog about multiple sclerosis, also has a website named after the CPU in the Apple II GS, and is also affiliated with a commercial real estate company in Leominster, Massachusetts. So if I was trying to assemble a portfolio or get in contact with this person or find out what their interests are, this is a great tool to do that. I had to use this at Mass Ioneer. We had inherited some websites from different divisions in the hospital, and we were trying to figure out who owned these websites. So I punched in the Google Analytics code and was able to track it down to say, oh, this belongs to that doctor or this chief medical officer. So it was very useful internally. Builtwith.com is a tool that tells you what a website is built with. You just punch in a URL and it scans the source code for that page and analyzes all the different scripts and embedded technology and embedded code that is being referenced on that site. So it'll show you the content management system, what plugins they're using, what they're using for analytics, content delivery network, embedded content. So here on gambits.net, you can see that, well, I'm using Google Analytics, which we just found out a moment ago. I have Facebook is getting some information about visitors to my site, maybe because I have a Like Us on Facebook link, and that adds all this other stuff. But it also tells you, well, I'm using WordPress plugins, so there's WordPress. And which plugins am I using? I'm using Jetpack. I'm using PowerPress for my podcasting. For my SEO, I'm using all-in-one SEO pack. I'm using some additional security from iTheme Security Pro. I'm also using MailChimp to send emails to all my subscribers. My site is hosted on DreamHost. And yeah, all this different technology from all these different sources being used to power my website. And you can find that out using Builtwith. So very often, I'll say, is that a WordPress website? Because I really like what they're doing with it. And I'll go to this, I'm like, yeah, it is a WordPress website. I wonder what plugin they're using. And this tool tells me all of that. And then I can go grab a copy of that plugin for myself and put it on my website, because I want to be as cool as they are. Who is hosting this.com? So websites are hosted in a variety of places. I mentioned a few: DreamHost, Bluehost, GoDaddy, etc. And if you're trying to figure out where your website should be hosted, this tool can be useful to find out where other people are hosting theirs. I've had people come to me and say, hey, Ken, can you help me with my WordPress website? I say, sure, where are you hosted? And they're like, Google? I was like, no. Okay, Firefox? No, you're not hosted with Firefox. So I use this tool. I'm like, okay, you're hosted with DreamHost. I know how that interface works. Here's where you go to do the thing you're trying to do. So you look up, for example, gambits.net, and it tells you DreamHost right here is where it's being hosted. Now in this case, that's a little deceptive because that's actually only where the DNS is. My website is actually hosted on WP Engine, but the DNS is hosted on DreamHost. So it gives you that initial layer of where the name servers are hosted. It might not necessarily tell you where the actual site is. It also works with IP addresses. So I punched in 192.0.66.2. It says it's owned by Automatic. That's the company I work for. So if you ever see that IP address associated with the website, it's probably a website hosted with my company. Even if it doesn't outright say Automatic, that's our IP address, at least for the current time. Troubleshooting. Things go wrong with websites. Surprise. Websites are software. Software breaks. Let's talk a little bit about how to get it working again. Isup.me is a useful tool to find out, is something wrong with my computer? Is it just me? Or is the website actually down? The website is also called Down for Everyone or JustMe.com, which more explicitly describes its function. Isup.me is just a short way to remember it. So is the website up for everyone, or is it just you who can't access it? Because there are so many different nodes that your data has to bounce through to get from you to the website and back, so many potential points of failure. It's useful to get an outside perspective, as opposed to like calling your coworker and saying, hey, is it working for you? Because it's not working for me. This website is a third-party objective perspective on if the site itself is down. So for example, reverseinternet.com is a website I used to use a lot, and then it stopped working one day. Is it just me? No. Reverseinternet.com is actually down, this site tells me. And this generates a link that I can send to somebody to say, look, here's evidence that the site is down. Similarly, WordPress.com is up, which is really good, because otherwise my phone would be going off. WordPress.com is up. So if I can't access my WordPress website, it might just be me, because this site says it's fine. Tools.pingdom.com. Pingdom offers a lot of tools. I'm going to show you the website speed test tool. Again, just like all the others, this is a freemium tool. And this will test the speed of your website and show you where it's fast and where it's slow. Because when you pull up a website, as you saw, a lot of different content is being aggregated from a lot of different places. It can be pulling stuff from Facebook, MailChimp, WordPress, your database, images. Sometimes it's trying to load a 10 megabyte image, and you don't know why, because it doesn't need to be that big. So here, for example, I punched in gamebits.net. I'm going to have it test as if it was in Washington, D.C. in the United States of America. And it gave me a score of about 70% out of 100, a D. It's not great. And it tells me specifically what categories I did well in, which categories I did not do well in. And it also walks me through in real time what assets were being loaded and what took the longest. So for example, I can see that this stuff pulled up pretty fast, but this took about half a second. So I might want to drill down into these and look more closely like, oh, that image is really big. I can make that smaller. Or hey, Facebook takes a long time to add. Maybe I can remove that from my site. All different ways to improve your site. What's my DNS.net? Kind of sounds like a nerd comedy. Dude, have you seen my DNS? So as I mentioned, domain name servers are the numerical addresses that computers refer to themselves by. And this lets you see all the domain name records that go into a website. Because it's actually quite complex, and I'm still learning about it myself. There are lots of different kinds of DNS records. There is a CNAME record, an A record, a AAA record, an alias record, MX records, TXT records. They all do different things. And if one of them is misconfigured, it can take down your site or cause different visitors to see different versions of your website, which is really fun. So here you can very clearly see what the domain name is for everything. So on gamebits.net, I can see, okay, from all these different parts of the world, this is the IP address it's referring to. That's the A name record that gets pulled up when I go to gamebits.net. And so to the layperson, that might not mean much, but if you are dealing with DNS a lot, this is a very useful tool to see what your records are. You can also change it to CNAME record instead of the A record. And here, now I see it's pointing to gamebits.wpengine.com, which is information I didn't have before. I thought it was hosted at DreamHost, but now I can see it's actually hosted at WP Engine. So this is a great tool for getting under the hood and seeing just exactly where your site is pointing to and where it's hosted. geopeeker.com. This displays what your website looks like from multiple locations around the world. And it shows you what other audiences and regions might be seeing. So similar to, is it down for everyone or just me? This is a third-party perspective on what your website might look like. When you make changes to your DNS record, it takes a while for that to go out into the world. Basically, all the ISPs have to update their internal phone books about what the dotted addresses are that your website is pointing to. And this can show you how that's propagating in real time. So here, for example, gamebits.net, it's showing me a little screenshot, just a snapshot, of what somebody in Singapore would see if they went to gamebits.net. Somebody in Brazil, somebody in Virginia. Right there, I have 3 different continents perspective, and another 3 below there that got cropped off. So we have customers all around the world at WordPress.com. I work with one of the largest news organizations in Guatemala, and when we make changes to DNS, sometimes they see it before us or vice versa. And this can be useful for us to say, the change has been made, it just hasn't gotten to you yet. Let's give it 10 minutes and see if things improve. And if I want, I can get even more detailed information about the DNS records. So here, for example, I can see gamebits.net is an alias for gamebits.wpengine.com, and it has an address of 104.196.243.72. So even more information. SSLshopper.com. There's a movement to make the entire website, the entire web secure using HTTPS. That S basically stands for security. And you need a security certificate, an SSL certificate installed on your website to make that happen. Where you get that certificate is up to you. That's not something I'm going into, but this allows you to make sure that it's working correctly. So this will verify the SSL certificate installed on a website. For example, I went to gamebits.net and it says, hey, this certificate is working great. It expires in 71 days, so you don't have to worry about it for another 2.5 months or so. And here's who signed the certificate, who authorized it. So you know it's working, or you can go back to them with questions. It can also convert SSL formats. So if you were manually dealing with SSL certs, which most people aren't, but every now and then it does come up, this will convert from, say, PMB to CRT or et cetera, which is very useful. And also, it'll decode an SSL certificate. So an SSL certificate looks something like this. It's a big block of text that makes no sense to the average reader. But I found an SSL cert on my hard drive. I was like, what website does this go to? I can't read this. So I punched it into SSL Shopper and it converted it for me. And I said, oh, this SSL cert is exclusively for gamebits.net. It's not going to work on any other website. It was designed and created to work on that one. And it expired 2 years ago. I'm like, okay, now I know not to use that certificate. Thank you. Last tool in this category is Wave. This is a website accessibility evaluation tool. And this will go through your website and show you any errors you have that would make your website harder to view or access for those who have disabilities, whether it's visual, oral, comprehension, etc. So right here it's showing me, for example, there are some images here that don't have alt text, which makes it harder to read with a screen reader. There are some tags here that might not translate. And I can also go more specifically, and it gives me, like here's a header tag, but there's no text to go with the header. And that can be confusing for certain website interpretation programs. The reason you would want to use a tool like this is because 10% of all people have some sort of a disability. And disabilities aren't always apparent. Question? Comment?
Comment. I recently talked to a host of a bed and breakfast, and they were having some hard times with flooding. But they also have a hard time because internet lawyer trolls have been going around suing websites that weren't completely compliant with ADA.
Yep, so talking about the accessibility, ADA, American Disabilities Act. Thank you. Talking about ADA and legal compliance and requirement, there is something called Section 508, which can require adherence and compliance. Target.com got sued for not being compliant. Some universities have gotten sued because their videos were not subtitled or captioned. That's also true. So you want to accommodate those individuals for several reasons. A, it's the right thing to do. B, it makes your audience bigger. And if you're selling something, you want to increase your audience by 10% because then your sales go up by 10%. And C, if you're making your website easier to read with a text reader, a screen reader, text-based browser, that's going to help an Apple too. Because if you're visiting the website with Kontiki, that's not that different an experience in some ways from using a screen reader if you're visually impaired. So you can use this for your website, or you can also install the Chrome browser plugin. Excuse me. All right, I have 8 minutes left, right?
Correct.
Correct. Great. So I've finished half my categories. I'm going to go speed through these. Supportdetails.com. So many times my dad would call me and say, Ken, the computer's not working. And I was like, okay, what version of Mac OS are you running? And he's like, version of what? Mac OS? And I'm like, oh, okay, what operating system are you running? He's like, Mac. Okay, I'm like, okay, Mac what? He's like, Mac. I'm like, okay. What web browser are you using? Yahoo? No, that's not a web browser. Dad, you're not helping me. And so I tell him, okay, go to the Apple menu and click About This Mac. Like, Apple, where's the Apple menu? It's in the upper left, Dad. I'm like, all right, he clicks that. And I'm like, okay, what's the version number? And he just reads me everything on the screen because he can't discern what's important and what's not. He doesn't know what I'm looking for, so he just spews everything at me. Go to supportdetails.com. This tells you what browser you're using, browser version, operating system version, screen resolution, color depth, Macromedia flash version. It puts all this information in one place, and then you can just click Export PDF, and you get a nice, clean export that somebody can email to you. Then I get to walk my dad through how to attach a PDF to an email. And there's no way around that. But quickforget.com. You really shouldn't convey private information, usernames, passwords, credit card numbers, etc., via email, because email is very often unencrypted. It's plain text. So if somebody asks you, hey, can you send me my password? You don't want to do that with an email. You can use quickforget.com. You just put this information into this text window right here, and you can designate whether it should stop working after so many views or so many hours. So for example, here I would say, here's your username and your password. Great. And it generates a link. And I copy that link, I send it to somebody. I say, here's a link to get the password. It'll expire in 1 day or 2 clicks, whichever comes first. And so a day later, if their email gets hacked, it doesn't have the password in it. It has a link that has expired because they already got the password. Full disclosure, when I first discovered this tool, I thought it was fantastic, and it still is. Somewhere in between there, the company I work for bought it. So this is now an automatic product. Images. We love to make things look good on our websites, in our blog posts, on social media. It's very helpful to have a visual component break up those big blocks of text. Where do you get them from? Pixabay.com is one such source. They have free photos, over 1 million photos. You don't have to give any attribution. You don't have to say who took the photo or where you got it from. You don't have to pay anything. And you can even use it for commercial purposes. So you can put ads on your website. You can put it in a magazine like JuiceGS that you sell. The only thing you can't do is like sell the actual photo itself. But you can put it in a context that is commercial. For example, I went searching for Vizslas, one of my favorite breeds of dog, Hungarian hunting dog. Found these great photos. I especially liked this one. I went to download it, and it says, please log in for downloading full resolution. I was like, okay, I need to create a free account. That's not a huge obstacle. But what if I don't want to log in? Then I need to use a CAPTCHA. I need to click the, I'm not a robot. I'm like, okay. And it says, if you sign up for an account, you don't have to use a CAPTCHA. It's like, okay, I get it. And then I download the image, and it says, if you want, here's how you can attribute it, but you don't have to. End result, I get a beautiful color picture of a Vizsla. And just to clarify, you can use it for any purpose. Attribution is not required. Commercial use is okay, etc. Another such website, unsplash.com. They also have free photos, almost 1 million photos from 110 different photographers. Still, no attribution or payment necessary. Still, commercial purposes are okay. Let's see how they do with Vizslas. I looked for this dog on here, got completely different photos from Pixabay, no overlap. I found this gorgeous dog right here. I went to download a high-resolution version of it, and I got a high-resolution version of it. I didn't have to create an account, didn't have to click a CAPTCHA. It was that easy. And then again, they say, if you want to credit it, here's how, but you don't have to. And again, here's the licensing saying you can use it for pretty much anything. Boingboing.net is a great way to get pictures from YouTube videos. So when you go searching on YouTube, you sometimes see thumbnails like these. These are 4 thumbnails for 4 images that I found when searching for PlayStation 4. I want to get the picture that goes with that one right there without taking a screenshot and then cropping it, etc. So I just go to Boing Boing, I punch in this URL, and it grabs that image for me. Easy. Remove.bg. BG stands for background. And this is, if you're not good with green screen or Photoshop or GIMP, this will do it for you. It removes the image background and outputs it as a PNG with a transparent background. So I again use that same thumbnail I just grabbed from YouTube of me standing in my living room opening the PlayStation 4. I upload to this tool and immediately cropped out everything that wasn't me and my PlayStation, which is super handy. So I started with this image. After I upload to that service, I get this, and now I can put myself in a rainforest. It was that easy. They do require payment for the high resolution version, so sometimes what you get down is not as high quality as what you uploaded. Pablo.buffer.com. This is for cropping images and preparing them for use on social media. So for example, Twitter is landscape, Instagram is square, mobile devices are portrait, all different layouts, and this lets you immediately crop it for whichever one you want. So here, I'm cropping this for Twitter, because I chose, or you can choose it for Instagram. So here's a square, Pinterest is this size, Twitter and Facebook are this size, and it helps you immediately crop it. You can also add captions and logos, and you can blur out some of the background. You can also just hit a button that Pablo offers to add a random quote. So there you go. And then you can also share it immediately to social media, or you can download a version of it for yourself. Audio. Wow, I have 90 seconds left. I'm going to run long. I'm just telling you now. Sometimes you need free music to go with your podcast, for example, intro, outro music. Free Music Archive is a great tool to get free music. Even if you just want something to listen to in iTunes, you can go to Free Music Archive. Free songs for streaming and download. Partially funded by the National Endowment for the Arts. So here I'm searching for classical music. I want to break that down a little bit more granularly. Here is symphony music. I can go that much more granular. I can also search specifically for music licensed under Creative Commons, which is useful here. So this website was supposed to actually shut down last year, but they got new funding. They were sort of on probation for me this past spring, because you can see right in this blog post, they said, update on bugs. We have bugs that prevents the music from actually playing, but it is there. We just can't prove it. I was like, that's not very reliable. But then they updated just last week, July 12th, and they said we fixed all the bugs. So the site works great now. Pond5.com, they sell a lot of music. I bought my transporter lock background music from them, but they also have a lot of free stuff, videos, audio files, photos, and 3D models. Here I'm searching for stuff about war, because war is a very visual medium, and I found a lot of stuff that these are actual photos from actual wars, actual soldiers, that they have made available for your use. Videos and audio files too. You can also upload a file and it'll find you stuff similar to that one, which is neat. Headliner.com is another, we're coming up on one of the last tools. And Headliner is used to put audio on Twitter, basically, because Twitter doesn't let you upload audio files. You have to upload it to SoundCloud and then link to SoundCloud, and that's a pain in the butt. But you can upload videos to Twitter, up to 2.5 minutes. And Headliner lets you upload audio and make a short video out of it, basically. So in this example, I have taken a clip from my Polygamer podcast that is going to be airing the next day. And I uploaded here, I added my logo, which is handy. And then I chose what aspect ratio, kind of like Pablo, for what social media platform I wanted to post it on. It says this one is good for Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Great, I'll go with that one. And then I added a waveform and some captions, and this is what I ended up with.
When I first started doing charity, it always goes through your mind of, well, are people going to think I'm doing this because I want people to think I'm good, but I'm actually trying to do good? But what if they think that I'm trying to do good, but I'm not actually being good, and they just want the attention? Like, your brain just goes in the spiral, and then you kind of have to just go, just do it, and it'll be okay. And if it's not, you'll work through it later.
So it automatically captioned that, allowed me to edit it to make sure it was correct, and now I have this neat little teaser clip that I can put out there. Question? Headliner.app, I believe. And there will be a link in a moment. So this goes back to that teaser that I posted earlier. I said, here's a 30-second teaser to a podcast that I'm releasing tomorrow. If you want to listen to 20 seconds of it now, you can listen to it right here on Twitter. No need to go to SoundCloud or anywhere else. And again, a day later, I used URLs to change where that link went to, so it actually went to my website. So I just went through 6 categories, 25 tools. I hope you found something you've never heard of that you will find useful, whether it's looking at DNS, domain names, getting social media content for your website and promoting it. And if you want to get the URLs to all these websites, go to kgagney.com, which is URLs, /25tools. And that'll lead you to a not too fancy Google Doc that basically has 25 links broken down into 6 categories. Thank you.
All right. Any really quick questions for Ken?
Any tools of your own that you want to recommend, Sarah?
What is, how do you spell the name of that dog breed?
Vizsla, V-I-Z-S-L-A. It's a Hungarian hunting dog. The females can be about 35 pounds. That's on the smaller side. Men are more like 50 to 55 pounds. They have excellent recall, but they're also very high energy. Oh, they're beautiful. Yes?
If anybody's running WordPress on a Linux box, there is this CertBot tool you can use to create automatically create SSL certs and keep them updated all the time. You install them once and it works.
Is that Let's Encrypt?
Yes.
So if you're running WordPress on a Linux box, there is a cert bot that will automatically provision and renew free SSL certificates from Let's Encrypt. That is what I suspect most hosting platforms use. That's what we use at Automatic. We provision Let's Encrypt certs, and we tell our clients they automatically update every 90 days. That's similar to the experience I have at DreamHost. But if you want to do it yourself, and what's the name of that tool?
It's just, you can go to let'sencrypt.org and the tool's called CertBot. You just apt-get install CertBot and that's the whole thing.
Just go to let'sencrypt.org, and you can get the cert bot there. Alexander, last question.
To add on to that, even easier, CertBot is a very cool tool, fully agreed. It's a little difficult to use. Ansible, go to Ansible.com, search for CertBot as an Ansible module.
Ansible.com, and they have a cert bot that is
They have a management tool for CertBot.
a cert bot management tool. Great. Yes, that's great. A lot of these tools do require some level of command line familiarity or Linux, and also SSL certificates cannot be decrypted by Apple II computers. So if you install an SSL cert on a website and you require HTTPS instead of HTTP, you have blocked access to that website from Apple IIs. I recently did that on my Apple II blog because I looked at the Google Analytics. For the last 9 years, I've been publishing content on that website weekly on Apple II Bits. And I had exactly 1 visitor in 10 years using an Apple II. And he viewed 7 pages, and it took him 45 minutes. So he probably did actually read each page. But again, that was just 1 user out of 10 years. And I decided I would rather have the security than the accessibility in this case.
All right. Thanks again, Ken. All right. So we're going to resume at 11:15 with Brian Weiser. So go ahead and take a quick break.
Next up, we have an update from Brian Weiser with Call A.P.P.L.E. He has some updates on what he's been doing over the last year.
Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in and coming this morning for our annual Call Apple update. Call Apple is the oldest user group in the United States, founded in 1978. And besides myself, we've got Bill Martins, who would love to be here. He's the president, sort of the overall vision of the user group. He restarted it back in 2000. Jim Maricondo, who you might know from the Twilight 2 screensaver, and he does other things for us. Javier does, of course, retrobriding and good hardware reviews. Marcus is our t-shirt designer-in-chief. And I do all the book designing and editing, among other things. So that's our team. And if you want to be a member, it's $28 a year. That includes access to all the legacy PDF magazines, new magazines, access to legacy software, user group discounts that Apple provides, things of that nature. And that's one of our older issues if you've never seen one. And beyond Call Apple, we also produced other magazines like Mac, A.P.P.L.E, and so forth. And I was just going to say too, starting out here today, I like to do a quick, if you've seen this before, I like to do a quick review for newcomers. So I'm going to do try to go through a quick review of what we offer and then go into our new products. And the new magazine, this is one of my favorite covers. Bill took the picture. We restarted the digital magazine since 2015, and we do 3 to 4 issues a year. These are somewhere between 50 and 70 oversized 8.5 by 11 pages. We use iBooks authors, so they tend to be much bigger, full of color, reviews, news, things of that nature. And this particular issue is the spring issue. We're putting the finishing touches on the summer issue with Kansasfest updates, and that will be available this coming week. And as a reminder, last year was our big 40th anniversary, and at that time we put that issue in print of the magazine and also made a free PDF downloadable just so people could check out the magazine and consider subscribing if they never have. And we continue to make that free PDF available of that full 40th anniversary issue. So if you want to get that, just go to callapple.org/magazines, and there's a link within that article. And besides those things, we're also a news site. Obviously, a little bit has happened since System 6.02, but we do report on current news as well, along with good legacy news on both the Mac, Apple II, and other general retro goodness. Call Apple also has a number of other sites under other domain names, like applearchives.com, where we have archives of sites that are offline and links to a lot of other sites and resources, manuals, software, magazines, a variety of different things. And that's actually where the official Beagle Bros and Applied Engineering sites are, ae.applearchives, beagle.applearchives. And we've got the largest collection of software, manuals, firmware, catalogs, everything you might need. Those are 2 of my personal favorites. And Bill had started virtualapple.org back in 2003. You've probably heard this from other people. This is web browser emulation of games for Apple II, Atari, we've got Virtual Atari, Virtual Game Boy, etc. Currently, it's in a state of transition because of some of the web browser standard changes and supporting Java. It's being retooled right now, but that is certainly coming back with full functionality. We're also the official site for MECC software at mecc.co, and we have contributions and approval from the previous MECC presidents, Oregon Trail creator Philip Bouchard, and we've got over 250 titles. Bill has spent so much money buying and getting donations and scanning all the manuals, and it's been a long process of scanning and compiling, and that's still in process, and there's quite a bit of it online there, with certainly more to come. With that many products, it's just an enormous project. And beyond all of those fun things, we're also a book publisher, and we'll be going through some of these here in a minute. And this is all at callapple.org/books. If you go there, that's just a quick summary of all of the books on one page if you don't want to navigate down into the categories. And the first book we recently did was the WASPAC Enhanced Edition, which is a collection of Steve Wozniak's restored handwritten notes and printouts. It was really the first the first technical book on the Apple II before the Red Book and so forth, with materials supplied directly from Apple Computer at the time. So it was fun spending about 7 months restoring Woz's handwriting, but that's kind of a neat one. What's Where in the Apple we released a couple of years ago, the enhanced edition of that monumental reference, near 600 pages. Bill and I spent a couple of years fixing legacy mistakes, adding new material, and that's a great reference for beginners and advanced programmers as well for all aspects of the computer. Nibble Viewpoints, Mike Harvey, Nibble Magazine. This is a collection of all of his editorials on a variety of subjects, which is informative in a number of ways. You know, starting businesses and just different ways to strategize and improve your own entrepreneurial interests. And Bob Clardy of Synergistic Software. This was his autobiography we released with stories with a lot of VIPs, experiences in the office. He's a fun guy who's had a lot of incredible experiences. And speaking of which, there he is with Woz and Roger Wagner. And we also released a compilation book of all the Synergistic manuals, the early games book. We re-released the Colossal Computer book by David All with cartoons from the 70s. David All wrote a new foreword for that as well. We redid the Apple House, which is home automation on an Apple II. Something everyone should do, right? And we released the All About AppleSoft Enhanced Edition. This is a book we originally published in the early 80s, and this is great for AppleSoft programmers of all levels. Of course, like everything, added material to it. And that's just an example of one of the pages. AppleSoft from bottom to top. And last year, we released the Tome of Copy Protection with Lane Roth, which is everything you ever wanted to know about copy protection on all levels. Starts out with the basics, disk mechanics, and goes from there for many hundreds of pages. That was quite a popular one. And last year, in honor of Roger Wagner, I enhanced all the pages for his limited edition Apple's Apprentice magazine. It only ran 3 issues, but it's really a fun magazine for kids of all ages. Had fun crossword puzzles and program listings and fun art throughout, and it's definitely a favorite if you've never checked it out, and you know what Roger's like, he's just a hoot. That's certainly carried forward to his magazine. It's just too bad it didn't live on longer. And we've released manuals for a number of our earlier titles, like the Big Mac macro assembler for DOS 3.3. Blankenship Basic, which is a fantastic basic option. And that's the quick overview. Now we're on to fun new stuff. So DOS 4.1, Wallen Phillip, he released this. He's been working on it for several years. He's done 46 builds of this DOS 4.1 that expands from DOS 3.3 in a number of ways. It's fully compatible with DOS 3.3. It has support from all the emulators and applesauce, etc. So it's very capable that way. But more support for the language card, different views of the catalog, volume names, file managers, some expanded tools like Big Mac and G.P.L.E. to take advantage of its new features. And this book is several hundred pages as well. And he's a genius programmer, and he's gone through so much effort to enhance the operating system that he preferred, where so many of us love ProDOS. This is really a neat vision of what DOS 3.3 should have turned into, and, well, now has. And in the fall last year, we released the Lordlings of Yore manual. This is a legacy game from the 80s by John Baxley. He's a very well-known fantasy author. You'll find his books on Amazon if you like fantasy books. And this is, as he called it in the day, a fantasy, a combination of a fantasy and strategy game, or an RPG. And that's one of the game screens. The Necromancer phase. And you deploy knights, have to figure out how many people to deploy, bribing people, strategy. You can play against other players or against the computer. So there are several different phases prior to combat. And I enhanced all the artwork and did new layout and so forth for that. He wrote a new foreword for it as well. Just some of the artwork. And then the fun thing that we've just done is a box for this great game. So this is the pretty much near final version of the game box, and we're going to have a physical disc, as you can see, with the manual, and it's actually going to be a signed limited edition with your choice of paperback or hardback. And there is an RSVP link coming to the Lordlings of Yore page on our website. If you just go to Books and Games and Lordlings of Yore, there'll be an RSVP link in there for expressing interest and indicating your preference of format of the manual. And the pricing and so forth will be forthcoming once we've got a better idea of how many people are interested. So if you want to see this become available, and yeah, please RSVP. And I'm just going to pass around a sample of the box and the manual inside if you'd like to look at it. And here's some shots of the inside box. I added some fun artwork to the edges just to jazz it up a bit. And you've probably never seen this guy or heard of this book, but Good Old Graphically Speaking by Mark. And as you probably know, this is a great reference for programming, graphics, animation, and this is fully retypeset. Every bit of art you see has been redone. And I've also added penguin art throughout this. You might have actually noticed on the cover, that's my little shorthand for Penguin Enhanced Edition, featuring a penguin that his wife drew. And we all love Penguin, and the original edition certainly did not have any penguins in it. So there's penguins throughout it, over 25 penguins you've never seen before. This is page 1 of 2 of penguin lore that appeared on the back of the different product boxes, where you could learn things like, cats and penguins are often seen together in sushi bars, and penguins have little interest in archery, and fun little things like that. And it's kind of fun to brush up on your penguin lore and learn more about it. Mark also wrote a many-page foreword for this book as well. And just a few examples of some of the different pages. More machine language. Three-dimensional graphics. And when I placed this one, and I chose the penguin and I chose the phrase, trying to fit the penguin to the phrase to maybe the chapter to try to group something that was never intended to be grouped. And as I put this one here, it says, penguins do not eat turnips. And he's holding a disc, so I have to wonder if penguins eat discs, maybe.
Only if they're turnip flavored.
Oh, turnip flavor, okay. And this one with the penguins shun Argyle socks. This one I think Mark showed in his presentation. That's the one that appeared at the back of a product display at a dealer, letting them know it was time to order more penguins. And I was going to say, too, my few remaining copies of the book I did get Mark to sign. So if you wanted one, I've got a few left. And this was one of our unannounced books, all about Pascal. This is another book we originally released in the 80s. Fully retypeset books. This one, we used scans of the original pages. They're enhanced. The headers at the top were fully retypeset. It's got a new table of contents. And it looks very sharp. Here we've got Pascal techniques, hardware interfacing. And our next unannounced book, Bill and I had so much fun with 600 pages of what's where in the apple, we thought it would be a brilliant idea to do about 580 pages of all about DOS, fully retypeset. That's where the fun was. And this one also was released in the early 80s. Covers, and these are all the sections in the book: how DOS works, a closer look at the directory, adventures in file handling, speeding up DOS, repairing bugs, modifications, relocatable object code, utilities, memory management and utilization, which is aimed more at the language card in the earlier Apple IIs. It highlights other operating systems, actually, like DOS 4.1, Pascal, CP/M, TRS-80, and Atari. And then we've added several appendices to it as well. And I should say, too, with any of our books that have programs, you do not have to worry about typing those listings in. We do have discs available for download. And that was one of the challenges with this one, is the original discs we provided in the day did not have all of the programs on it. The discs now do have all the programs on it. We had to do quite a bit of typing to make it complete. But if you ever go looking for those, if you go to the books page, the very first thing you'll see listed is apps. And on the apps page are all of the books or manuals that have accompanying discs. And the discs are also linked on the individual product pages as well. And Quality Computers. So we have an official license now with Quality Computers in a partnership with President Joe Gleason, and also to Alive magazine editor Jerry Kindall. And this has been fun. I also fully remastered the logo for Quality, just like I've done for all of our other projects, AE, Beagle, stuff like that. To Alive magazine, Bill plans to start putting articles from these magazines into the news feed on our website. And I remastered 2 of the manuals, Signature GS from Giulio Proni, And you might actually know him from Econ Technologies. They make a number of current Mac utilities to this day. He's been doing that for 20 plus years. And Signature GS is a collection of control panels that make your 2GS easier and more fun to use. So you get a screen blanker, screensaver, desktop pattern editor, a sound selector, and a boot setup utility. Specifically Phantasm, Sonics, Graffiti, and Bootmaster. And then Six-Pack by Bill Tudor. This one adds over 13 new features via extensions and control panels, an alarm clock, CPU and memory use, encrypting program, an alias program for making launching files a little easier, a file comparison tool, hotkeys, file peeker, which is kind of like a sector editor, Open Sesame, more info, select icons is kind of like grep. Pick a variety of parameters and look for those files on your disk. Print catalog, super data path, and work set. So if you had a workflow, you could say, well, here's my graphic design workflow, launch all these programs and load these documents. So it's pretty cool, pretty advanced stuff. And then we get into, well, in this case, I'm a little extra biased. This is my personal program. The Etch-a-Sketch and other fun programs. So I thought it would be fun to compile some of my high school programming experiences and some of the programs we did back then, just to kind of have a feeling for what programming was like back in the day. And so, yeah, here's me having fun in front of my Apple IIe. You'll notice there's an IBM disk there. Well, that seems out of place. Well, I borrowed that from the school. I thought that would be the perfect blank disk for some games. So that's what that's all about. And this is our school computer lab. We had about 12 Apple IIs. And my computer science professor, who had a great approach to teaching, he made it fun and entertaining. He would ask students to come up and demo their programs on a big 40-inch TV. He'd even take, he was also a prolific author, so he'd take time out for just story time and read us a little thing from one of his adventure books just to keep the atmosphere light and fun. And we also had IBM 5150s in there. And he was in there working right alongside the students, so he seemed just like one of us. Made it really fun. And this was our Bad Apples Computer Club that took place after school. And here we all are trying to look sophisticated. And actually, I should, hey Steve, how am I doing on time?
6 minutes.
Oh, okay. So I just have to share this funny story. So in the computer lab, one of my buddies took a picture from his original game at home to play with. We learned you don't bring original discs to the lab because people stuck pencils and things in disk drives. And he was playing with this graphic, and a different teacher comes by and says, let me see the original disc. Well, this is just a picture I'm working with. The teacher didn't believe him. So the teacher reaches for the disk. My friend tries to keep the disk in the drive. In moments they're struggling, they're actually wrestling with the drive, so much so that they hit the floor with the disk drive and they carry the IIe along with them. And afterwards, I guess the teacher realized my friend was actually telling the truth and then offered to replace the disk. But as I joked in the book, is this copy protection in action? Yeah. I'm still in contact with them, and one of them is up here, but. So my Etch-a-Sketch, I was so obsessed with graphics, I juiced it up with with sound support and joystick control and drawing shapes and H-plotting. Maybe I was trying to recreate Graphics Magician, but I really exploded it. Just trying to speed along. And it's actually about 17K in size, which is a pretty good size for an Apple II program in BASIC. And I've got a machine language program here. I simulated navigating around my very complex picture of an Apple II motherboard. That was my final exam. I learned how to do low-res graphics, saying Apple is #1. We wrote programs like states and capitals, graphs, things like that. And I also used my skills to modify programs I came across in the computer lab, like Tunnel Race, which is all text-based, or this launching program. And these are all in the manual. There's a disk image available as well, of course. Bill wrote his own Pilot program back in the day, and this is a manual for Pilot, Bill's version of Pilot, A.P.P.L.E W1. Bill's son Ken wrote a tic-tac-toe, so we thought it would be fun to give him a manual and support his Apple II programming endeavors. And Cater Killer is another one we released from Jeff Koftanoff, who was a kid when he wrote this, but that was a long time ago. And a new manual for AppleSoft Carpenter 2. This is another one of our early titles. 7 different utility programs for AppleSoft programmers. DOS Disk Analyzer, which sounds like a sector editor, but it's really a lot more than that. It looks at disks and RWTS in a number of different ways. GBBS Pro, okay. So you might remember a year or two ago, we released this manual, fully retypeset, graphics that nobody's seen before, expanded, enhanced, and we had an original programmer on board who was updating it, fixing bugs. He basically vanished before we got anything he had developed, and Lane Roth has put the finishing touches on a 2.2 update. So if you actually want to download it, gbbs.applearchives.com is the official GBBS site for BBS fans. It has links to Lane's GitHub repository for both GBBS and LL. Anyway, it's another offshoot of GBBS. And Lane really should be commended for that, because that's an enormous effort to dig into a variety of different versions of GBBS and source code and actually get it to compile. And that's one of the things in the new book as well. If you wanted to build the source code, there's instructions on how to do that as well. And just a reminder that we do have partnerships with a number of authors. So when you buy a book, you're not just supporting us, you're supporting the author as well. We pay them. So Tome of Copy Protection with Lane Roth, Bob Clardy's Synergistic Early Games in Cyberjack, Robert Tripp for What's Where in the Apple, Mike Harvey and Nibble Viewpoints. We donate to charities with the GBBS Pro sales. And Structurus, which was our iOS game, was good old Martin and Olivier. And 2 more things. Spirals, people seem to really enjoy. You might notice, like graphically speaking, we had a Spiral edition, and it was surprisingly popular. So we have woken up, and we will be releasing more Spiral books, like the WASPack, for example. Spirals do have a limitation where they can't be more than like 500 pages. So if we did a Spiral on All About DOS, for example, we'd have to split it into 2 volumes. Maybe we'll do that. But we do have a Spiral on All About AppleSoft, All About Pascal, and several other ones. So kudos to Stavros for starting us down that path. And the Call Apple Disk Pack 8, which was a collection of programs from some of the early magazines, has been found and recovered thanks to Antoine Vignow. and we're still missing several of our early discs with programs and so forth. And we'll let you know what that full list is if you want to contribute. And that's it, Apprentice. I think I spent 3 weeks of 16-hour days working on those 3 issues to make them really pop and look good. So I'm not sure if we'll compile them into printed volumes, but certainly making them available as PDFs is something else we're considering. We're in the early stages, so we're just trying to figure it out and see what the interest is. Like with these 2, Manual Signature GS and 6-pack. You know, if there's enough interest in those, we might release some of their other manuals. And actually, there is another book of theirs that we are absolutely releasing, but I'm not going to say more on that yet. Anything else? Okay, well, thanks, everyone. I appreciate your interest.
All right, hey, Brian, you're going to have these books available also tomorrow, correct?
I have them tomorrow at the vendor fair. I have them in my room if you want to stop by, 127. I have some of them on the table if you just want to walk by and glance at what they are. And if somebody still has the game box, I wouldn't mind getting that back too.
All right, thanks again, Brian. And so lunch is from 12 to 1, and then we will resume sessions at 1:30 with Peter Neubauer, correct? Talking about Play-Doh. Anything else, Steve? I think it's 1:30, right? Okay, so thanks again, and we'll see you back here at 1:30.